All right, good evening. So just going to talk a little bit about what's going on across the country for a few minutes. So the main story is going to be the brutal cold across the upper Midwest. Really just some extremely chilly air that's already actually starting to take place across mainly Wisconsin and Minnesota. As you look at the current surface observations right now, we can see this pretty intense cyclone across, well, I don't want to say that deep, but definitely a lot of colder air behind it, centered over central Michigan at the time being. And temperatures actually below 0 Fahrenheit across northern Wisconsin and Minnesota right now. That will actually get a lot colder tonight into tomorrow as well as into Wednesday. Out ahead of that, you can see there's some warmer temperatures mainly across the Ohio Valley in the warm sector ahead of the cold front, with temperatures mainly in the mid to upper 40s, even some lower 50s as you make your way down south into West Virginia and Kentucky. Here across Oklahoma this evening, actually fairly quiet. Temperatures in the mid to upper 30s. But gusty northerly winds associated with that cold front that moved through earlier today. Things are actually going to be pretty quiet here across central Oklahoma. We're actually going to be to the west and to the south of this really, really cold air mass to the north. Luckily, it will actually start to warm up as we make our way towards the weekend, as the pattern starts to shift a little bit. This is just taking a look at current water vapor imagery, and you can see that really deep long wave trough really extending across the central part of the country, especially the northern part of the country. And then you can see that anticyclonic flow over the western part of the country where there is a weak ridge over California. But really the main story is going to be this long wave trough centered over the central part of the country, and that's really going to bring the northern Great Plains as well as the upper Midwest some very, very chilly air. So just moving to the mesoscale analysis. Again, this is kind of just what I depicted. We're looking a little bit higher up in the atmosphere now. This is at 300 millibars. You can see that jet streak, especially over Colorado and Oklahoma. We're actually in the left exit region of this jet streak right now. Maybe that's helping with a few clouds over Oklahoma right now, but overall the weather's relatively quiet, and we do have this long wave ridge centered over the western United States. But really, the main story is this long wave trough over the central part of the country. I'm taking a look at the soundings. This is from this evening, so this is 0Z. So this is 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is International Falls, so we're looking at northern Minnesota here. You can see tropopause heights are around 350 millibars, so that's pretty low. This is where the temperature first becomes constant or isothermal, and or increases with height. So there's that level there, but also that very cold air at the surface. That's minus 2 degrees Fahrenheit. So obviously some very chilly air. And tropopause heights tomorrow, especially across the upper Midwest, are supposed to be very, very low, as low as 700, 850 millibars even. And I'll show you that. But before I jump to the cold and that main story, this is just the Norman sounding, just to kind of tell you weather's fairly quiet. Winds are out of the north, as I said earlier. Generally just a fairly breezy, brisk day. Temperature slightly below average. Should be around 50 degrees this time of year here in Norman, but fairly quiet conditions. So just kind of look at models quickly right now. Again, I'm going to keep this fairly brief, but so this is tomorrow evening, 0Z Wednesday, and this is from the GFS. This is the 18Z run, but this is the two potential vorticity, the PVU pressure surface. So this is a proxy for the tropopause, for the dynamic tropopause, what we call the 2 PVU surface. So really what this is showing is a much lower tropopause across the upper Midwest, and this is associated with the low of the tropospheric polar vortex, or you can also call this a tropopause polar vortex. The two are different things. Tropopause polar vortex is what we refer to as a TPV, or tropopause polar vortices. So that will really be what's responsible for these not only low troposphere or tropopause heights, but also the really cold temperatures at the surface. Obviously, these are upper level features, but they have effects that translate down to the surface. So this is over Minnesota. You can see those tropopause heights as low as 700 millibars. Even, I mean, it's off the charts in terms of the color scale. But if we just cherry pick a sounding for, this is Minneapolis, Minnesota. Again, this is the 18Z run. You can see tropopause is roughly 850 millibars. So our troposphere is roughly a kilometer or maybe a kilometer and a half deep. Surface temperature in this forecast sounding is minus 25 degrees Fahrenheit. So just brutally cold air. 15 knot wind at the surface, so you can imagine what the wind chills are going to look like. This is just awful. Don't go outside if you can avoid it. So yeah, this is going to be the main story, really across much of the central United States into tomorrow and as well as into Wednesday. Kind of just an interesting thing. So this is ozone concentration. We actually go forward to, let's go to the North America. We go to Tuesday. you can really see that ozone concentration affect much of the northern half of the U.S., and that's associated with that stratospheric air. We have a lot of ozone in the stratosphere. It's actually responsible for the increasing temperatures with height in the stratosphere that we typically see. So when this ozone actually gets translated down to the lower atmosphere, that can result in some respiratory problems and just poor air quality, especially when we see just such stagnant air. So this is definitely an issue in terms of health concerns, especially when our troposphere is only 1.5 kilometers deep, as I showed you just earlier. So just more of a chemistry aspect of meteorology. Chemistry definitely doesn't matter in atmospheric science. And obviously these are just the surface, these are the 2-meter temperature anomalies. This is the same time frame. So this is tomorrow evening, or 0Z, Wednesday. So temperatures 25 to 30 degrees Celsius below average across much of Minnesota and the Dakotas, as well as Wisconsin. So again, stay inside, and this, also it's going to feel a lot colder when you factor in that wind chill. So really just stay inside if you can. So again, this is the 500 millibar geopotential height anomaly pattern. There's that longer wave troughs centered over the the central part of the country, bringing much of the northern plains and upper Midwest and really cold air. But luckily, this pattern actually starts to break down. Trough eventually moves east, and then we see this shortwave trough embedded in a longer wave ridge. Shortwave trough is over California, and that'll eventually push off to the east. And then we start to see more of a southerly or southwesterly flow at 500 millibars across the Four Corners region, as well as the central and southern Great Plains. And really, if you think about it, this is a zone of ageostrophic divergence aloft. Granted, that occurs mostly above this level, but we could take a pretty good guess that there'd be some sort of cyclone or lee cyclone response into this. And that tends to translate to southerly flow at the surface when they cross the central and southern Great Plains. So we would expect somewhat of a warm-up just by looking at 500 millibars across the central and southern Great Plains, especially ahead of this stronger shortwave trough and actually a closed low at 500 millibars. So just looking at the isentropic analysis, again, this is for Friday, you can see some fairly weak isentropic ascent and warm advection, or positive pressure advection on that isentropic surface across much of Oklahoma. So there is going to be some warm advection. There is going to be a slight warm-up towards the weekend. I'll probably do one of these towards the end of the week. But again, I guess the main story is there is going to be a slight warm-up, maybe even some precipitation into the weekend. We'll have to see. Again, it's a little bit far out to talk about any details. But just the trend is a chilly few days here in Oklahoma. By no means is it going to be as chilly as up in, say, Minnesota or Wisconsin. But it'll be a little bit brisk. It'll be a little bit breezy before we start to warm up into the weekend. And hope everyone up in the upper Midwest is just staying warm. All right, thank you for watching, and I'll probably do one of these sometime